Welcome back to the A Lot of Words podcast, answering the questions that you actually ask. Not me, not Matt, but you. You can ask your questions if you go to alotofwordspodcast.com. There's going to be a giant button on the homepage that says ask a question. Chauncey, it says something. It's the big blue button on the homepage. Go there, ask a question. We're launching next week. I believe we're launching on Tuesday. I'm joined with always as Pastor Matt Smith, author. Hold on. I'm going to keep going. You want to say something? This is my turn. Nothing. This is my turn to talk.
Nothing.
Author. Is an homage to John MacArthur, Bible teacher. Sure. And you are, as I learned recently, also a master magi.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about why. When
you ask questions, you're asking us questions. It assumes we have answers and experience. And it does. If anyone's watching this and not listening, they would first remark at how young we must look.
Yeah, that's pretty.
So they're like, why would I ask such young men?
Well, yeah. Yet you're a grandpa.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. We don't look young. I just saw us in the video.
You might be we have a gray. We have crowns of glory in our beards.
Yeah, my granddaughter is due day before yesterday.
Yeah.
So
it's exciting.
In the oven a little longer.
When this airs, you will have a granddaughter by the time this airs because they're getting induced.
Maybe Christ comes back.
They're getting induced on Sunday.
Yeah. Well,
currently you have a granddaughter.
Yes, I do.
Now.
All right, so what do you ask me, Master Magi?
We count her every week in the attendance for sure. That's the most Southern Baptist thing we do. Pregnant woman, that's a person.
Well, Master Magi.
Yeah, Master Magi.
When your kids are little, there's Great Wolf Lodge, and they have the Magic Quest.
Mm-hmm.
You have the little wands with the kids, and so we brought my kids all through that. And so Hamilton technically is a Master Magi, and so when he had to be 5 years old, and you have to basically go through all the steps. Like there's 4 floors, 5 floors, 6 floors, and you just go through them, everyone, and you have to wave the wand at things, and then it tells you somewhere over there, and you're just running back and forth. You get miles of walking in this hotel, and you're just running back and forth, and there's princesses and dragons you fight, and the wand does stuff. It's pretty neat. And Hamilton's little, so I'm just running around with them, and so back and forth through this hotel, and at the end they have a ceremony. He makes it to the Master Magi, and so they, dub him, and so we get back in the elevator with some other people, and he goes, "Dad, you can tell him." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did you know that you were here with the Master Magi?" About my son. So technically, I'm just his manservant.
Yeah, you're like a Geppetto.
Yes, I'm not actually a Master Magi. So
his manservant.
You can ask my son, who's now 10, so he's been a Master Magi. Now he's a totem master as well. So
wow. So there's levels above this.
No, we've reached the top.
Oh,
yeah.
He has all the secret knowledge,
he's Gnostically.
He can now wield it. Are you nervous about the launch of this podcast?
I don't have. I'm like, when I go to prepare a sermon, or when I teach on a Tuesday, or if I'm doing a debate or something, like there's sort of I have like a goal, right? And
we have no goal.
Well, no, I mean, I'll have there's an opponent, or even if it's just a sermon where I have like sort of an argument that I want to address, and I'm kind of covering the things that someone might say and against that argument before I'm making it. I'm sort of setting the table. So in other words, when I'm done, I kind of know whether I did what I wanted to do, whether it landed or not. I knew that I accomplished something. And in a conversation like this, I don't watch all these podcasts. Yeah. I get that they're awesome. I just never know if I land the plane. And so it's more just like, we're talking. So it's fun. I mean, I'm glad I'm doing it. I wonder if I found out that no one watched it at all, I'd be like, nah, that's what I figured. And if someone's like, this is amazing, I'd be like, that's cool. But it's also, there's a fascination where I feel a bit like an alien. Yeah. That people are into this thing. And I'm like, these humans you speak of, what is it that they do? I'm like, what is this thing? So we'll see how it goes out. I'm more amused and just excited to see what happens about all of it. I mean, when you look at these guys on the internet that are famous for stupid things, this guy makes animal noises in Walmarts and he's got 1 million followers.
I love that guy.
All of a sudden you see that, you're like, okay, yeah, let's go. We should be able to speak in this space. But I think the biggest challenge is always I have this crazy self-consciousness of when you speak with authority on something, you have to earn it. Mm-hmm. And so when we say, even in the beginning, you ask questions, I'm like, well, I guess that means it makes us say, well, we're a Bible answer man in one sense, we know the word. But yeah, the authority is something that like takes a minute and you want to come to. So I'm always self-conscious and shy about it, but I'm like, it's real. Like it's an earned thing, but still. So anyways, you just feel, I'm excited, but you have that vulnerability hangover just like you do normally. So I'm sure you feel the same way.
I do. Yeah. Well, last week I was like, I think I had my first joke and I was like, oh, that felt good. And I was telling Chauncey when I came in, I was like, I feel like I found my personality has not come out because I'm like, I'm trying to make you seem so sophisticated in your answers. And then I was like, well, today we're doing a whole podcast about you. I was like, we're going to lose that quick.
Yeah.
But, and then I was like, well, between the two of us, we have over 40 years of ministry experience. That's like not.
Yeah, that's not insignificant.
That's not insignificant. And so I was like, well, yeah, it's like what age you get to where you're like, now I'm the one who can. Like you're sort of getting that. I think you're there right now where you're kind of a lead academic in Christianity. Just no one's really heard about you.
I don't know about that,
and I say that as a huge blow to my own pride, but it's true. And so that's like like you said, vulnerability hangover. That's like I'm doing this. I've wanted you to do this for years. People are going to have opinions, and I'm not going to care at all about them. I love all of you who are listening, but I was like, I want to do this. This is the podcast that I would want to listen to.
That's how you do it.
And so I'm like, I'm going to do it. It's just like you do this with preaching. You're like, thank you for your opinion. Like you can get a Bible and start a church.
Yes,
go preach somewhere.
yes.
I was like, cool. Yeah, you could start a ministry and plant a church in 20 years, start your own podcast too.
Well, I'm also excited because this book is almost ready to go out. And so this is a chance for us to schlep the book.
Oh, we're schlepping it. Yeah. Smash.
This is great.
I
would just be amused if we had followers, subscribers.
Of course.
Do you call them subscribers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Brett Wheelis has subscribers.
All right. So if you have subscribers and then you had like all that stuff, like I'm just amused by the process. It's exciting.
Oh, now I'm gonna put the link to his podcast below this, which we're both on.
Great.
Brett Wheelis.
Yes.
Speaking of Brett Wheelis, Matt, first question: who is your favorite small group leader and why? I'm just kidding. Also, second question: who's your most hated small group leader at our church and why? Well, let's get into it. Today's
subscriptions, you get to hear all that.
It is true. Yeah, we'll have swag soon.
That's fun.
There's a swag shop. And again, I'm doing this just for me. I want a hat that says a lot of words.
I want to can we make like in the gym, the old school, like stringers? Do you know, like they're the tank tops that have the really thin, old school bodybuilders would wear?
Yeah.
And
like Muscle Beach stuff.
Yeah, but normally everyone says tank tops and they have these thick, like over the top ridiculous stringers where it's like, it's a thin strap. And it would just say a lot of words like that's just old school, like Arnold Schwarzenegger stringer.
Yeah, those so in a Zuba pants with our logo on the butt.
Short shorts.
Yeah, short.
They say a lot, and then it says of words. Just kidding. God forgive me. Let's go ahead. Okay, where are we at?
That's good. Today's topic is you. And so I realized that
fascinating.
It's fascinating. Yeah, it's going to be just a slog. But I think our church, even a lot of people in our church don't know you. And I think that's not a good thing necessarily. You can become, I remember John MacArthur, like everyone at all the other elders of the church, well, he's a lion in the pulpit, but he's so gentle when you talk to him. Yeah. And you're very similar because you have a pastor's heart. But I think people can make a caricature of you very easily. But you're just this all the time. You have, of the people in my life, you have changed the least.
Yeah, I'm a robot for sure. I don't know. I would say I'm probably in one sense the least multifaceted. In other words, the drawers that are me are pretty much all labeled and you can see them and there they are. In one sense, I'm probably more like Donald Trump in some ways where like he just was at Davos. Gosh, there's that timestamp thing, but and everything he says is like just Trump. He doesn't adjust himself to like being at Davos, and it's sort of absurd. I'm not quite like that, but like I'm definitely me. So I think what happens is, on the one level, I am a bit more chill than people realize, but on the other, it's not like I change personality. I'm definitely the same.
Yeah.
I think the odd part is I am never off. Like, if that makes sense. I never like turn off. I'm never like, yeah, man, whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm speaking formally. But again, I'm kind of uninterested in me in this subject. I'm bored of thinking about me, I guess, if that makes sense. But I'm down to talk and answer any questions and stuff. So
yeah, we're not bored of you. You're bored of you.
Yeah, I'm bored of me.
But I'm going to go way back to the beginning. Okay. So your early life, what was that like before you were a believer? And I know that's like a big, giant chunk of time. So try to truncate as much as possible. But yeah, before You were a believer. What was just your life like growing up? What were your thoughts about God as a kid?
When I was growing up, I would say, like I said before, I like to read books. I like to think always my whole life. So it didn't get saved and then become someone who likes to think about ideas. My parents would say I was always a why kid. I was always asking why. And I've always been really kind of conceptual in thinking. So like I was very bored in school. I would say most people that knew me would say I was nice. Like I was a polite person. So I wasn't sort of like a jerk to people. I wasn't a bully or mean, but I was definitely like kind of confident in myself, if that makes sense. And I sort of would say that I was, once I started figuring out and I could see the patterns, like I'll give you a story. So as a non-believer, I remember I was able to do well in school, and I didn't have to study a lot. How do I say? I'm not trying to be arrogant, but you know what I mean? I just didn't have to study. I did well in school without studying.
Tell the truth.
And so I was always bored. I was like doing stuff in class. And so I remember though, sometimes I would, again, I wasn't a Christian and I was in AP US history, I remember. And so I'll get in trouble for this. It's great. And so I'm in AP US history and all the kids are in the class and everyone's like, this is a really hard one because the teacher gives a lot of work. And I had taken all these AP classes and I was doing sports and I was, and I remember that we had to read, I don't know, a bunch of stuff in every day because class is 5 days a week, right? So every day you show up and every night you had to write like a report on every like page or paragraph. It was a lot. It was like, so people were turning in like.
It was a lot of words.
It was a lot of words back then. But when you're in high school, like having 5 pages or something of like, and you're looking at the people that would write and they were all being, and I did it one time and I'm like, this is absurd. There's no way the teacher's reading everybody's crappy words here. Like, and so I did my first one, turn it in, and he was okay, make sure you turn next week. And I got mine back with a check mark on top of it. Mm-hmm. And I looked through it and I'm like, there's no marks. And I'm like, there's no way he read this. And that's what I mean about like cynicism. Like I would immediately acknowledge like the system wasn't just him telling me stuff. I'm like, here's a human being who has a life. It seems like, and there's no way he's reading this every day. And the evidence shows that he probably isn't. So I decided to do a little experiment. I just took the check mark and I ripped it off my paper. And then the next day, because it was every day, turned in the same paper. And this is how much I was a liar. I was ready. I could have justified it because if they said, hey, this is what you turned in yesterday, I'm like, oh, sorry, I must have misplaced it. Let me go get the real one. It's at home or whatever. And so I turned it in, and the next day, check mark. There's another check mark. I'm like, he didn't read this. So I did that same paper. I turned in like 3 or 4 times, and it started to look like the old school like treasure map where it was like getting torn out in pieces. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is getting crazy. I'm going to just get real crazy. So then one day I turned in my chemistry homework. And again, plausible deniability. I could be like, well, I must have accidentally turned in my chemistry homework. And guess what? Check. And so then I started turning in ridiculous things. I'm like, here's math, here's this. I would turn in whatever. And I got like a great grade in that class and learned nothing. I learned no things. And so the way I learned about US history is I went to the library and read books. And it was just like I was almost like petulant about the reading. So I was a nice guy, but I was definitely a bit like Ferris Bueller, a bit like kind of wanted to have fun and do stuff and was always trying to figure out like, okay, how's this really work? What's the real thing? And in terms of God and the rest, I would say, I loved, since I was in 5th grade, I remember I read The Sword of Shannara back in 5th grade, and I'll be short.
You made me read that.
That was great. But I was here in 5th grade, and I just loved sort of those archetypal stories where there's the chosen one, and there's a coming of age, and then they're recognized, and there's like overwhelming odds, and kind of all that stuff. And I always used to see those. So I definitely would say I believed in sort of like destiny and that God is a concept or there's some sort of meaning and purpose. I never questioned that. I never got into the real cynical, there's no reason for anything. It's all illusory. And even in the classes when I would be hearing about certain things in biology and you're a machine and this, that, I would find myself sort of rejecting that. That's through high school and the rest.
Like blind watchmaker.
Yeah. I wasn't like, I was like everyone else in the sense that I knew like I was a smart person, if that makes sense. I could think about concepts, but I also knew how lazy smart people can be. And what you do is you basically think, okay, where do I have friction in my mental worldview? well, that's a good enough story for me to go on about what I wanted, you know? So graduating high school and college, I was really into girls. And so whatever philosophy helped me go out with girls. So I remember girls used to bring me to church. Girlfriends and whatnot would bring me to church. And there's one gal in particular who brought me to a church service, and she used to pray for me. And I was so rude. I'm sorry. Yeah, but so she went to this church service in San Diego, and she took me there as a rock band, and there's the preacher speaking, you know, about this and that. And I thought, that's fine. And so we're driving back, and she goes, what do you think? I said, it seems fine. It seems cool. Like, it seems like fun. She goes, what do you think about Jesus? I'm like, sounds neat, like a neat guy. And she goes, yeah, but like, you need to become a Christian. I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure. It seems like I'm doing pretty well. Like, he seemed to agree with me. Like, you know, and what in hindsight, it bothers me. In fact, that first little booklet we wrote was, I Am Barabbas. And I talked about that in the book, because if I had gotten in a car crash that night, I would have gone to hell. And so it made me, like right away when I became a Christian, I started understanding the gospel, and I looked back on these stories with horror. It's like watching a movie and realizing that there's like a bad guy with a knife behind you, and as he's stabbing down, you turn and you just don't get stabbed. Like you're like watching your past, and you realize how close you could be to like an eternity in hell because somebody was being popular or nice, and they meant well, and they did this stuff. So I'm not, you know, so in hindsight, like looking back, I think the kid gloves, and then in college, I remember, you know, I was not, you know, morally, I wasn't a pure guy. I was a party guy. And I was on the rowing team in college. And I remember one of the people on the rowing team, this gal, was always telling about Jesus, but she was living with her boyfriend. And I was like, you're such a hypocrite. Like I hated Christians at that point, because the way they would just similar to this other story, was like building up. But then, you know, when I got saved, and I won't get into it too much, but I just remember the big reality was, you don't realize that you have a motivation not believing until you're confronted with it. And once I realized that I wasn't the sort of magnanimous, like go with the evidence guy I thought I was, I had a motivation not believing in God. Namely, if God was real, then that means there's right and wrong, which means my selfish actions, the things that I want to do for my justifications for things, you know, to get ahead or whatever I wanted to do, really they're not subjective. Like there's an objective wrong and right. I just don't want to be accountable to that and to other people telling me what that is. And that was the motivation. So it didn't matter. Like if you think about it, people are willing to believe they're a machine so they can sleep with who they want.
Yeah, for sure.
That there's no purpose. And so I was a happy kid. I was nice. I think the number one view of God I had was formed from 80s movies where like a girl would be the person that saved me or completed me. And every 80s movie confirms this. Once you find the one or the person, you'll be complete, and all the promises of God. I mean, even the songs, you know,
in your eyes,
all of them. That one, others, where he's like, in your eyes, I am complete. The light, you know, I see the doorway to 1,000 churches. No, this is the language. I remember the old Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with Kevin Costner.
Oh yeah,
I was into that when that came out, and so. That makes me old, right? Yep. And they had Bryan Adams singing "Everything I Do it for you," and he goes, "I die for you." And they had the scene from the movie where he's about to launch himself in the catapult, and he talks to the Muslim guy, not the Muslim, what's his name with the voice?
I have no idea.
You do know,
probably
Morgan Freeman.
Oh, Morgan Freeman, yeah.
He was in the movie, but he was supposed to be the Moor, and he was
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, but he was in there with Kevin Costner. Look it up. It's Morgan Freeman, right?
I'm not gonna look anything up.
Is it Morgan Freeman that was in
Chauncey,
Robin Hood?
No, Chauncey doesn't know.
No, oh, you're saying you don't know. Not that it's not true. Look it up. We have to know this.
That was
Doesn't Joe Rogan have people look things up at times?
Yeah, go for it.
We have to know. The people that are watching this need to know this too.
If anyone didn't hear that, Chauncey said, I think I was too young.
Was Morgan Freeman.
That was great. Now, are you using Google or chat?
Robin Hood. I'm just Googling it.
Oh, wow.
Well,
shows how old you are.
Yes, he was. There he is. He was Azim. Look at him.
Okay.
When I show you, you'll remember.
I don't think we can show it. It might get. I don't know if we can.
But you can see it.
I can see it.
Remember?
Wow, I do remember him.
Oh yeah,
that's
I won't
crazy.
Show it.
There you go.
This. So here I am watching this, and I remember he goes, "Is it worth it? Is she worth it?" As he says, he's going to go to find Maid Marian and over the wall, and he goes, "Worth dying for," and he hits the thing, and he goes over and fights the thing, and Bryan Adams has the song and his music video, and he goes, "Everything I do for you," and I'm like, to me. Now in hindsight, looking back, like that is the story of God. That is, and I don't mean the love story. I don't even mean that. I mean the promises of what that is all of your security. Everything I do it for you. And Jesus says we're supposed to do all things for the glory of God. And he goes, I'd walk the world for you. I'd die for you, all this stuff. And here's the best part. Two things. One, that's the story of what we long to do. We want, like, as a non-believer, if I was pessimistic enough to think, oh yeah, I just want to use people to get, that's not where I was. I was like a romantic. I wanted to find someone to feel that way about. And in hindsight, I was doomed because only God is the one that you can feel that way about. But even worse, once you meet God, you realize I don't even feel that way about him, but he feels that way about me. Yeah. So if I took that same song and flipped it, and this is the scandal of the gospel, that people hear it, that's a song God sings about us. Now, there's still, like, everything I do it for you. That's not totally true. He does it for his glory. But in reality, though, he's like, I'd walk the world for you. He knows every hair on my head. He goes, I'd die for you. He sent his son. Like, you just realize, and when you see that, you're like, oh, so I'm going to, we're talking about my story. But that's what I believed about God. And I think a lot of people still do that idolatry. There's no such thing as a non-believer. You have people that believe in the God that exists or in an idol, but there's no such thing as a non-believer. And I believed in Mises myself, and the idea that I would find satisfaction in my idol was this perfect companion that would gonna complete me. I apologize for my phone ringing. I gotta turn that off, right?
That'd be good.
It's a scam call, and it is a scam call again. I would turn that off.
This is, I guess, give me a one-word answer so we don't get way too off topic.
Sorry.
But what you're going through on Tuesday night, that we're going to basically get out of Egypt and go back to secularism. Do you think, like, the lie of the soulmate, that's what I grew up in as well, that there's, that one person, that romanticism, do you think we're going to go back to that? Or now that we're just in hookup culture and, like, everyone's just like...
I don't think we ever left that part. I actually don't think we left that. I don't think that if you talk to in fact, the language of sort of the homosexual...
Because when I talk to young men now, no one is struggling with that, like the soulmate. I haven't heard that in 10 years.
I still think they are. The reason I say that is, when you look at what happens in marriage counseling, the things that people are upset about is that their spouse isn't matching up to their idolatry. It's constant. Right. Even the most crazy things you can imagine. I can't believe they do that. So I'm like, why can't you believe that? Or like, and
look at them, they're terrible.
Well, no, just the very idea that, and again, in marriage, that we can't keep our role towards God and that what the other person does, and everything becomes transactional, because they're not satisfied. When we say that a relationship's transactional, it's that you go in that relationship and you expect that person to give you something. And what is it, that thing we want from everyone? We want validate. We want security, significance. We want, all that validation. And so it can come from a like, it can come from a thanks, it can come from but we're seeking it constantly. And I think in particular with people, yes, they might be a lot more cynical, especially in like the culture about things, but especially with Christians, we still, maybe we've been trained to maybe like be careful with soulmate language, because on the flip side, let me turn back around. In providence, in God's providence, there's no other woman that's for me but the woman that I have. She is technically my soulmate, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Like, there's no multiverse. There's no situation where I wouldn't be with her. She's the one that God chose for me. So in that sense, she is my companion, my other half, right? But she's not who completes me. It has to be the Lord. But complete, you know what I'm saying? So in other words,
I do.
There's you get what I'm saying.
That was a good one-word answer.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't know why I ever asked you to do that.
Sorry.
No, forgive me, please.
Yes.
It's called a lot of words for a reason.
I'm not verbose all the time.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
You mentioned a lot of things you're in college, pick it up there and then bring us like through your testimony. You mentioned rowing. I guess we can start there, like how the Lord took your rowing career and eventually used that too.
Well, I started high school.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because of the injury.
Yeah, right, a little bit. So in high school, I started playing water polo, and the school I was at, Coronado High School, is a water polo powerhouse, and like the most influential leader person, besides obviously my parents and my dad, mom, and stuff, but like was my water polo coach, Randy Burgess. And I remember, he was one of the best coaches on planet Earth, truly. I mean that. And he taught me a lot, but we had practice in high school. The first practice was 4:45 in the morning. It started, and we had a few hours before school, and then the second practice started at 3 p.m. So we had 2 practices a day, and then multiple days we had a third, during lunch. Or then we had weights. We had every weekend. So that is an absurd amount of training when you're a kid. In fact, when I was doing training for the Olympics later for rowing, the volume isn't that much. I mean, it's higher, but like started back in high school. So here I'm really serious athlete in high school, but I still did my thing. I read books.
Yeah.
And then I went to college. I was a really highly ranked water polo guy. And in fact, my whole high school team ended up going to the Olympics, basically, except me. I'm the Olympic loser. And so I went to college, and me and this other goalie, I was a goalie, and we ended up at the same college. And we were both recruited. They didn't tell us. And when I get up there, I'm like, well, this is kind of crappy. Now I've got to like kind of fight for my spot all the time. And he was one of the other top ranked goalies. I'm like, what the heck did this guy do? So one of us could have transferred. We were kind of playing chicken. Who's going to wait for the other one to transfer? And so I went back home for like a break, and I was skateboarding with some friends, and I broke my foot. And I went back to school, and I had to like redshirt now. So now I'm like freshman. I got a redshirt. This other guy's here, and now he's not going to transfer. And I'm like, this is lame. And so I decided to try rowing because there's some guy on the campus that was asking people if they could row, and my buddy was there, and I'm like, I can beat him. And so I started rowing. And in college, this was in a rowing school, did well at rowing. And by my junior year, started turning my times in, going back east to train. And by my senior year, made the New York Athletic Club. The national team was through the New York Athletic Club back then. And so I moved back after college. So I went to college to play water polo, ended up rowing, ended up making the national team of sorts of that circuit. And I moved back east after I graduated to Boston because the U.S. sort of Olympic thing wasn't here in San Diego. And so I wanted to make a lightweight rower. And so I moved back east. And so I was living in Boston, rowing, and I was a coach at the head coach at Brandeis University, and one of the I'd helped out coaching at Boston College too, and then trained in Boston. And I was supported by New York Athletic Club in Boston, and then went to New York every weekend with the team. And so in New York City, when I moved out, this is interesting. So when I moved back east,
like what year is this? Just for
so I don't know when did I graduate college. Was like 2000. I don't know. So 2004. When did I graduate? I graduated high school in 97.
Okay, so graduate college like 2001.
Yeah, 2001. So it was 2001, yeah. And then that was that year when September 11th happened. So
Yeah,
I was in Boston when that happened. In fact, I was flying the plane I had flown on and back into Boston was one of the planes that went into the Twin Towers. My book was on it. I left my book. It was like one of those like mystery novels. I lost track. So when I moved back east, though, one of the gals I was dating in college moved with me and actually lived with me. So when I give people advice, don't do this, don't do that, like I know it. I mean, I'm like, and so I lived with this girl. So she moved back, and then you think about her, like she was kind and nice, and she was a pretty girl, and we lived in Boston, and it wasn't, and that was fine. So it's kind of doing the whole non-believer thing, but in the back of my mind the whole time, here I am training, I'm kind of following my dream, and this gal's following me, and she wasn't like enough. Like I would just see her, and the reason I mentioned like that she was nice and everything else, she was like, everything was great. She was nothing wrong with her, but I just, because I needed her to be an idol, I needed her to fulfill me. Like she was just a nice person. And so I remember one day just waking up and being like overwhelmed, kind of like with this weird sense of like there's more to this, and being like, there's got to be more than this, and like you're just not it. I just broke up with her. Wow. And it was hard. I'm not a crazy person, but this felt crazy because I didn't really know anyone there. There was no GPS back then, like to go around like places, not like normal ones. Like I was by and I break up there. So I remember her brother comes cross country to help her move back home, and I wasn't mean, but I was just like, whoa, that's heavy. And so now I'm totally alone. And so I remember going back to New York every weekend for these national, the big regattas and trips. And so I go there, and I'd stay with my buddies in New York City at the time. And we'd go out to the bars and we'd like meet girls and things. And he's like, hey, I want to introduce you to my friend. She's a teacher friend of mine. And so we'll set you up. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So we go and I'm walking to go meet him at the James Joyce Bar in New York City. And I passed by this place called Bourbon Street. And it was really janky. Bourbon Street was like kind of loud music. And there was like bras hanging on all the walls. And I remember the girl in the glass was, the bartender lady was wearing a pink tube top. I remember I was like, whoa. So I was like, remembered that. And then we walked to the James Joyce and my friend Danny was like, hey, here's so-and-so. And we meet her. And she was a nice girl, maybe a little mousy, but like nice. And I remember just thinking to myself, having a pit of doom because I'm like, well, the girl I broke up with was like way better. And this sounds terrible to speak about people this way, but you know where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, to Dan, I'm like mad at Dan. I'm like, I can't settle. If I broke with this other girl, I'm not settling. I'm not settling for just someone that's great. Like I already broke up with someone that seemed great. Everything was fine. Like I'm not settling, but it was like there's a misery in me because I think I wanted sort of the soulmate thing. And so anyways, he's like, where do you want to go? And I'm like, well, I saw this other place before because I was thinking about the pink tube top. Yeah. So we go back in there. And this is the Upper West Side. And I'm just sitting there with Dan and I'm kind of like angsty because this other girl's very nice. And I'm like with my friend Dan, but no one knows the turmoil I'm going in. And it's interesting. Here, I'll say this. God was working. Yeah. Like he was making me miserable. And so then this girl walks in and she's with her friends. And so my wife now, she was a student at Columbia University with her friends and they were heading to this bar. So the upper West Side by where the dorms were. And she walks in and she's tall. She's almost 6'1". And she's gorgeous. I mean, I used to have a crush on Sarah McLachlan for the longest time. And so my wife is a better version of Sarah McLachlan. But she walks in, they're at the door coming in. And because Dan, the circumstance was doing his thing, I hit Dan on the shoulder and said, Dan, that's the girl I'm going to marry. Just kind of like tongue in cheek, but also like, hey, I'm not settling. Like that girl, she's the catch, right? And so Dan's like, okay, cool. So then meanwhile, she sees me pointing at her. And so throughout the night, we're like kind of catching each other's eye. And I remember like Nelly, It's Getting Hot in Here was playing. And that's where she's like, what's up with this music? And I was like, hi, I'm Matt. And, we exchanged numbers and I go back, I'm like, this girl's amazing. And so I remember telling my friends, Dan, the rest of the next day, I'm like, this girl's awesome. I think this. And so I'm like, maybe she's it. I was through the roof. So I go back to Boston and I call her up the next day and she like looks me up. She's on, like, wants to make sure who I am. Like, who is this guy? And I said, hey, I'll come up to next weekend and I'll come stay with you and we'll hang out. And she's like, well, I can't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, I'm a virgin. And I'm like, what? And she goes, and I don't do stuff like that. I'm like, well, what are you doing at the bar? She goes, with my friends. I was like trying to give her drinks the
Bourbon
whole night.
Street bra bar.
And so she's like, well, yeah, I don't do that. I'm like, oh, well, is this like, are you like religious? And she goes, well, yeah, I'm a Christian. I'm like, oh, are you like one of those like born again Christians? And I don't know why I said that, but I was so irritated by all these people I knew growing up that would try to get me to know God. And she goes, yes. I'm like, oh, that's great. Well, cool. We'll figure something out. Yeah, I'll talk to you later. And I got off the phone and I was just like, kind of cried. And I was like, what do I do? And go back to my story in the beginning where I said, remember in school, I'm like, I'm a strategic person. So I'm like, well, I'm not, I want this woman. And so how do I get her? I'm like, well, I could just trick her and be like, yeah, cool, Christianity is whatever, and just try to persuade her away. But I'm like, that feels sketchy. Like, I want to think this through. So I'm just like thinking there. And I'm like, you know what? Christianity's stupid. Like, I'll do some research and I'll just gently disprove Christianity to her so she'll sleep with me, which is in hindsight is so hugely hilarious. And so I immediately go on the web, the AOL or whatever, and start looking stuff up. And the first sites I found were like pretty heavy duty, like Christianity stupid, blah, blah, blah. But it was like the letters would be like yellow font on black backgrounds. It wasn't like credible sites. And I just didn't want to send that to her because I didn't want to like lose credibility right away. So I'd be like, okay, let me find something more moderate. Like what would be a response to this? And so I started studying. And so I went to visit her. I hung out with her. And so she's now struck because she does not want to date a non-Christian. And I definitely want to date her, And so it was only like 2 to 3 weeks. And I went to church with her. She says, if you come with me to church, I'm like, I want to go with you anywhere. Let's go to church. And so I wasn't shy about it. And she was really into me. She was like, and so her problem was I was like corrupting her, But I'll say this, if there's a lesson here, if she had slept around, she's like, I love Jesus, but I still do whatever, I wouldn't be saved. Like,
nor would I.
Yeah. Everyone at our church that knows Jesus from my preaching needs at some point to look back and recognize my wife's virginity.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is when she was a little girl growing up, think of all the temptations that people have. Well, here's this little girl who's just making something in her own personal life. I'm not going to sleep with someone. I'm not going to date this person. And these are like, they seem like small personal things. But now when you look back providentially and you realize there are people that will have an eternity in heaven because of this seemingly small situation, it gets me choked up. So, yeah. But it's not like her faith, she didn't have a big argument for her faith. She wasn't like an arguer. So anyways, that made me just start it. And so I go to church there, and Tim Keller was preaching. So we go to Redeemer's Church in New York City, and he was preaching. And I, at that point, was ready to talk to her more about how Jesus, I even told her, like, I think Jesus was a real person. It just seemed fundamentally impossible for that not to be true. But that, the Bible was just kind of legends that built around his teachings, and he was just a good teacher. Mm-hmm. And so we go in, and Tim Keller's up there preaching, and he happens that night to preach on the thing called the trilemma from C.S. Lewis, which is like, and he literally says, as I'm sitting there with her, and I'm with her, her older brother showed up, and then this other guy that wanted to date her shows up. So I'm sitting next to these two other guys, I'm in church, and they're looking at me like, who's this dude? And he starts talking, and I remember there's a big pillar right where I was sitting, and I was like, I had to look over to see him. And he goes, whatever you want to say about Jesus, whatever you want to say, do not say that he was just a good teacher and not God. And I'm like, that's literally what I was saying like 1 minute before. And I was like, looks over, I'm like, what is happening? I was like getting kind of embarrassed. He goes, because if he's not who he says he is, he claimed to be God very clearly. And if he's not who he says he is, then he's either a liar or a lunatic. And in neither case is he a good teacher and worth listening to. He's either who he says he is, he's the Lord, or he's a liar or a lunatic. And I was like, caught my breath. I like held my breath for a second. And here's the big trick. As he said that, it's not like I believed. He said that, I'm like, oh yeah? Well, maybe, as I started to come through options, I'm like, well, maybe it's a false dilemma. And maybe he's kind of just misunderstood and they change. And as I'm starting to come to these things, I started asking myself, hold on, but if the claim is true that he claimed it, like if that's true, then he would be who he says he is. I'm like, why is that impossible as one of the options? It just all was hitting me at the same time. And I realized for the first time that I had a motivation in not believing. And that's the first time in my life that I saw my own self-justifications, that it's not like I saw first that he's the savior. I think I saw that he's like, he's true, And so but I also first realized that I was a motivated sinner, if that makes sense. I was a motivated skeptic, not an unmotivated one. And so then I was just sitting there as he's talking, I'm just processing this over and over again. If he's not a liar, like the things I've looked at, he's definitely believes what he's saying, and he's definitely not crazy. Like maybe he's crazy. Maybe I just think he's crazy. I'm like, it didn't settle. I'm sitting there as the service is going on, and at the end, everyone stood up and sang Amazing Grace, and I'm like, what if I said he's Lord, and I'm like, what if I said, okay, God, you're real, like, then that means that I'm a sinner. That means that salvation is a free gift. That means I could have that. I could be saved. What does it mean to be saved? And all of a sudden, it's all just, and I just was like, I'm in. I'm going to go with it. And if it's fake, I'll find out. But I'm like, I'm in. I'm all in. In my mind, I'm just like, Lord, I'll take Jesus. I know I'm not. And so I remember thinking to myself, if heaven existed, I would ruin it because I'm not perfect, and heaven's for perfect people. And it wasn't like I'm the worst sinner. It was that heaven requires perfection, and I'm not perfect. And I'm like, that makes total sense. Oh, and it just hit me. So I accept Christ in my heart. I just trust him. So I'm going to trust what he did, what he was telling me, that Christ died for my sins and he paid the penalty. And then all of a sudden they start singing Amazing Grace. And I'm like, it hit me at that moment. It's so stupid. I was like, it wasn't sophisticated at all, but I was like, if a missile hits me. But the reason I said a missile is like, we had just had September 11th. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, if a plane flies in and hits me right now and I die, I'm immediately in heaven and there's nothing that can take it away. Right this second, I'm heaven bound. In fact, I'll say this, one of the first things I thought of as becoming a brand new believer was that I was a saint. Wow. By virtue of what he said. And it overwhelmed me. And I'm like in tears. And so meanwhile, she looks over, the service is ending, and I'm like teared up. And so then she's like, what happened? I'm like, I think I just got saved. And then her brother And the other guy's like, yeah, right. Like,
Yeah, tell her whatever she wants to hear.
Yeah. And so that was crazy story, right? So I go back to Boston, and it's night, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I end up staying at my buddy's house, and the next morning, actually. So I go up the next morning, and I'm like, I want to meet her for lunch. And so I decide I'm going to go pray, because I'm like a little nervous about this. I'm going to try this prayer thing, and I don't know how to pray. I don't know where to go. And it's not like I went to that church or anything. So I went walking in New York City thinking I'll just go to a church and go in and pray. And for some reason, the only scene I had in my mind was that scene of Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Armageddon movie where he goes into a church and prays.
I thought you were going to say Home Alone.
No, not Home Alone. I was thinking of like Arnold Schwarzenegger praying in a church. It's like one of those movies. And anyway, so I go in, and there's this giant church, doors that were huge. And I like walk over, and you think they're going to be locked. I pull it, and it was open. So I went in, and the lights are off. And I'm like, well, in the movies they do this. So I go in, and I sit down in a pew, and I just start praying. And I'm like, I don't know what praying is. So I'm like, God, I don't know what prayer is. I think it's just talking out loud to you. And I have no idea if you hear me, but if you're real, I'm all in, because like the reality of like that night of accepting Christ was not that I liked Jesus or wanted Jesus. It's that the subject of Jesus is not, do you like Pepsi or Coke? The subject of Jesus is that it's absolutely objectively true in the way gravity is. That's kind of what hit me. And I was like, and that day when I decided to pray, I'm like, if you're actually real, like tangibly, you actually hear me, well, you're God then. And so I want to know what your Bible says, because that's apparently your word. And so I want to know what it says. So I guess, and I'll follow it. But if there's anything fake, like if you lie, if it's fake, then you're not real. But I guess then you wouldn't be hearing me, and I'd just be talking in the air. But I guess I just want a Bible, and I'm going to know what it says. But I'm not. If you're real, it should be real. Amen. And some guy comes up and taps me on the shoulder, and I was like, true story. I'm like, is this how prayer works? Like, he's like, can I help you? And I was just like, is this black guy in overalls? And he's like, can I help you? And I'm like, can I have a Bible? I'm like, is this an angel? Like, what, how's it supposed to work? Is this what happens when people pray? And you can understand, like, I was all in, right?
Yeah.
And so he says, well, come with me. He brings me outside and locks the door. It was supposed to be locked, I guess, because I wasn't supposed to be there. And he brings me to his car, and opens his trunk and gives me some paperback Bible. And here I am standing on the street corner, and I'm thinking to myself, that's either a coincidence or this is what prayer looks like. And I asked for something, and here I am handing the Bible. Why couldn't God do it this way? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, is this my first answered prayer? I said, thank you very much. I got in my car, and I drove back to Boston. I stopped at a rest stop at a McDonald's, and I got 20 chicken nuggets, and I sat down at this booth, and I said, with my Bible in my hand, and I'm like, I'm going to start reading. And I didn't know where to start, so I figured, well, I'll start with Matthew, because that's my name. And I was like, I'll do 7 chapters, because that seems like a holy number. And so I read 7 chapters of Matthew. Starts with the genealogy. But the craziest thing ever is I understood it. Not like magically, but like I understood it. First thing I saw was that Jesus described in these first 7 chapters is way different than anyone had ever told me about. He's more passionate, more bold, more manly, like more confrontational, smarter. I'm like, whoa. He's not like this guru, like soft hippie, socialist. He's like, this is like a man. Like I was blown away. And so I just read so much. And keep in mind, I was coaching at an all Jewish school. And so so here I am. I spent the next year literally willing to disprove my own faith, because I'm like, it's real. And so my friends, I go call them up, like, guess what? I'm a born again Christian. I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah. And then they would always say something to me like, oh, well, that's fake. And I'm like, is it? I think it's real. And they're like, well, that's true, but here's this why. And they would say, oh, it's full of contradictions. And I'm like, oh, well, like what? Because I want to go look it up. I believe you, but if it is, I'll stop believing it. Like, I'm in. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, well, I heard this, and sometimes it says this, and these don't match up. I said, okay, I'll go check it out. Thank you. And I'll stop believing, because maybe I just got caught up in something. But I'd always say before I left, I'm like, but if I find out, like if I come back and you find out you're wrong and there's an answer, are you going to become a believer? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I'm the open-minded one. So for literally a year and a half, I went to the religion section of the bookstore every single day, and I read whatever, and I would just put it all under scrutiny. My first conviction that first year was, it is the most rational thing in the world to believe in Christ, and it is literally irrational not to. Not that you just don't because X, Y, Z, but it's literally irrational to not believe in Christ. And but I was willing to go. I was willing to not be a Christian. And I kept that. I think the advantage is that a lot of Christians never had to challenge their faith. So they're almost afraid to get in a fight because they're like, I wonder if it works. It's like the karate guy that does karate his whole life and does forms, but he's never been in a fight. He's like nervous, it's going to work. Whereas like my first like doing the jujitsu, I'm like every day was real. I was really willing to and after about a year and a half, you can understand, I read a lot. So I had read a lot. I read all of Louis Sperry Schaeffer's systematic theology. I read the Bible at that point in the first year and a half, like 3 times. And each time I'd read a different study Bible with all the notes. And I was reading a lot. And Becky, at this point, we were engaged. And after a year and a half, we were engaged. And she moves to Boston and lived with this gal. And we we're going to get married. And I would go to Starbucks. She worked at Starbucks at the time while she was helping me out. And so I would go to Starbucks and just read books. And one night she was working and she was kind of hungry. I'm like, I'll go get some Chinese food for you. So I walk in the snow to go get Chinese food for her. And as I'm walking, I was just really convicted. I just was so convicted by the things I'd been reading. And I was really convinced that Christ is coming back and people need to know the truth and that like hell's real. And I was walking by these bars and people are laughing inside and I'm like, they don't know Christ. And I was realized there's nothing. I remember talking out loud to God and I'm like, I just want to tell people about you. That's what I want to do. I want to like preach. I like put my hand over my mouth when I said the word preach. And I'm like, do I want to be a pastor? And once I said it, this is how I am with all ideas. If I have an idea, once it gets in my head, I start to pressure test it immediately. I'm like, why not? Well, do I have to wear a robe? As a monk, where do you go? And I was just thinking of it. And I walked in circles all through the neighborhoods. I came back like an hour and a half later with super cold Chinese food. And I tell Becky, she's like closing. And she's like, what happened? I'm like, I'm going to become a pastor. She's like, what? Keep in mind, I'd been a Christian for a year and a half. Yeah. I was literally party boy. I used to have a potty mouth. I was like, but she'd see me reading all this stuff. And she's like, what? And then I call my parents. I'm like, I'm going to be a pastor. And they're like, thanks. And I'm like, and I didn't know what that meant. And so that's how it all started. So, and then I knew I needed to, I felt this conviction the whole time. I constantly felt like I wanted to cry, like I needed to be doing something. This like settled that feeling. Mm. And then I was like, I felt like I was missing out. I needed to get away. I need to get back and start right now. And I was training for the Olympics. And so the thing about where I was is I was at the beginning of my Olympic journey and I'm like, I need to retire right now. The Olympic trials were coming up in like 7 months or something. So I'm like, well, I'll get through this and then I'm done. But we weren't necessarily supposed to win those trials. This is our first attempt. We probably had good 3 or 4 cycles and we were going to be great. And my buddy was like down with it, but I retired right away, sold my boat, moved back home to San Diego, which is where I was from, because my parents didn't have like a real faith when I was growing up. They had a testimony that they would say they were Christians, but we didn't go to church or anything. And so I was like, I wanted them to know the Lord. And my sister was not a believer. And so I came back here to go to seminary. And eventually we ended up getting the church started. And I got to baptize my mom, my dad, my sister, and they're all still in the church today. 20 years later. Yeah. So that's the nutshell. Yeah, I covered a lot of ground.
It did. Yeah, I have 25 questions. That got us to 6, but I think we're going to do a second part. The other ones are all about. My last question kind of for today was, when did you feel that desire to be a pastor? You went through that. And then I think a part 2 would be more of your life inside of pastoral ministry. What does the last, 20 years look like, your ebbs and flows and all those things. But I think that's going to wrap it for today.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I took it
No, that was great. That was good. Don't be sorry.
I got caught up.
Don't ever apologize. You did. I think a tear came out.
No, there's no tears.
I've seen you cry once in my whole life, and I was like, am I witnessing the second tear I've ever seen? Yeah. It's too good.
Run it back. There's no just.
Chauncey, if we could just zoom in on the tear. I'm gonna tattoo it on your face.
Well, yeah, that's the testimony. I mean, we have a testimony video on our website and stuff. So
we do, but it's like 4 minutes, and you had 2 kids since then. It's just not.
Yeah.
We've needed something longer and robust. So
this makes me look like the actual person I am, like an older man who's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, if you have any questions for Matt about his testimony or want to learn more about all these girls.
No. Well, yeah, I probably
don't cut any. I was like, his wife's very okay with all of this.
No. Well, no. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So
that's what the Lord did.
Mm-hmm. That's the story.
If you have questions, go to alotofwordspodcast.com. Hit the button that says ask a question or something. Yeah. Chauncey's giving the affirmation, the affirm on that. Next week, we'll be talking about something, either education, why people are getting so dumb. That's what we're talking about today. Or no, it was the prelude to that. I'll give you a little. Was Matt's writing a book, and we pressure tested it on ChatGPT, and it said this is written at too high of a readability.
It just means I'm a bad writer.
Yeah, and I was like, this is written for academia, and I was like, what do most people read at? And they're like a 9th grade reading level, and it was depressing. So we might talk about that or something else. But again, thanks, Matt, for joining us.
Products I like.
Yeah, we're good. I have questions about that. I asked Brett Wheelis, what do you want to know? Why does he choose the bags he does? Again, that's a whole episode as well. But a lot of wordpodcast.com, a lot of words podcast.com. It's plural.
Smash that subscribe button, right?
Don't forget to smash the subscribe button. And then if you want to give money, just write checks. No, I'm just kidding. We're hoping to launch next week. So this will be in one of the first 3 episodes that go up.
Awesome.
People get to learn about who you are. Thanks for talking about yourself for like an hour.
Great. We're talking about God, though.
That was great. My biggest takeaway, if you want to know, was how, you cannot help but teach. And you're like, even like, here's my testimony, but then you hit all these little teaching moments. It's great.
That's what I meant. As you said, I never turn it off.
People enjoy this. I always look at church. I like this. I'm doing what you did in your sermon Sunday, where you land the plane, then take off again, then land the plane, then take off again.
I'm just enjoying the whirlwind of it all.
It's
yes.
I had to do it. But then, I was like, and this is, I'll close my Bible, and it's another verse.
Yep.
But no, I forgot. How I study church history. I hate church history books. Here's dates and facts, but it's through biography. And so I can read biography all day long. And so this is a little bit
like
of
a biography. Yeah.
This is your
part of
biography.
your testimony because of how you get saved.
It is. Yeah. Yep. I thank Becky for her virginity all the time.
Do you really?
No, that's weird.
That would be weird. There we go.
Again, a lot of words podcast.com. Check it out. Don't forget to
smash that subscribe button.
There you go. Chauncey, thanks as always. Chauncey, do you have a company name? How can people hire you? Yeah, just fill out the form on the website as well. Chauncey does all of this.
If you love the production value, let us know.
Yeah, the production value is the best thing about it.
Yes.
All right, we'll see y'all next week.